Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Stuff, and today I wanted to do another quick news video. I wasn't planning on covering anything today because I didn't see any AOS stuff, but then I actually took some time to read another article they put up, this time relating to the old world, and I wanted to chat about it. I am looking for a conversation starter, not anything, I don't know, obscenely negative, but I'm disappointed, okay? And so here's how I thought about doing this. I read this first thing in the morning and I was kind of ruminating on I want to say something, but how do I say it in the way that I want? So what I'm going to be doing is just reading the article start to finish for those of us who like to have the news articles. And then I want to tell you a story and tell you my thoughts on it. I think that's probably the best way to share all this. So we're going to head over to the community page, Old World Development Diary, the main factions revealed. Now we got some indications at, I believe it was Adepticon or maybe the event afterwards. I get my reveals mixed up because they all kind of bleed together for me. But we got the idea that not all factions would be equally supported, and that support could look like a lot of different things because they're doing metal models and resin and old plastics, and I don't know. I kind of got the sense that we want minimal investment in the old world, and I mentioned that in my last reveal talks or whatever. But let's go through this. With so many distinct armies fighting over the old world, you might be asking which factions would be the ones to feature in Warhammer: The Old World, meaning the game. We've seen a noble paladin of Bretonnia and Tomb King who seem to be very upset to be awoken, so it's safe to assume that these two factions will feature prominently in this new game. But speculate no more, as the guys from the Warhammer Design Studio are here to guide to who's who in the era before the Siege of Prague. Is it Prague? Prague? Take it away. So who, where, and when? Over the last few weeks, we've shown previews of new models, shown off freshly painted examples of returning favorites, and revealed many more hints of what you can expect from Warhammer: The Old World. This week, we wanted to take a look at which factions will feature most prominently in the game. The game will be set firmly within the Old World itself, the land between the coast of Bretonnia to the west and the World Edge Mountains to the east, during the decades immediately before the Great War against Chaos and the Siege of Prague. Much of the action in the first wave of books and supplements takes place in and around the Border Princes, the barrier lands between the Empire and Orc territory. I know that from Warhammer, Total War? I love that area. Everything's fun when the Orcs are around. Accordingly, we will be focusing on 9 core factions. So we have the Empire of Man, Orcs and Goblin tribes, Dwarven Mountain Holds, Warriors of Chaos, Kingdom of Bretonnia, the Beastmen Bray Herds, Wood Elf Realms, Tomb Kings of Khemri, and the High Elf Realms. So, those are our big contenders for this story arc. These armies will have rules published alongside the launch of the Old World and will be the pivotal players in the events covered in narrative expansions and supplements. Fans of these armies can also look forward to some shiny new miniatures that will accompany them from many returning classic kits. I've just started reading the article here, Warhound, so you're in good. I'm going to get to my synopsis and wrap it all up in a bit. So if you're tuning in, hang out. The Old World before the Great War against Chaos. The battles of Warhammer: The Old World take place in the decades immediately before the Siege of Prague. At the heart of the Old World lies the sprawling Empire of Man, founded long ago by Sigmar, but long since divided into rival states by centuries of civil war. West of the Empire is the chivalrous realm of Bretonnia. Throughout the World's Edge Mountains, to the east, Grey Mountains that lie between the Empire and Bretonnia, is the realm of the Dwarves. In the arboreal gloom of the great forests of Atholorn resides the mysterious Wood Elves, kin to the seafaring High Elves of Ulthuan, who, in their arrogance, maintain many colonies and outposts along the coast of the Old World and appoint themselves custodians over the affairs of man. So we got some great pictures of some old classic minis here. You'll love to see it. I'll pause there. I just need to catch my breath here. Yet these powerful races and nations do not live alone within the Old World, for they must deal constantly with evil creatures of chaos and destruction. All across the Empire and Bretonia, savage beastmen prey herds explode from the depths of twisted and sickened woods. From desolate wilderness and high moors rush the endless hordes of orcs and goblin tribes, and from the distant and arid land of the dead come the skeletal legions of the Tomb Kings, and from the frozen north march the endless hordes of the Warriors of Chaos. In Warhammer the Old World, these core factions battle endlessly. Some seek only death and destruction, others seek to reclaim lands once ruled, still others only to serve their dark masters and overthrow the order imposed upon the world by civilized races of men, dwarves, and elves, who, in turn, must march unceasingly to war to protect their realms from the darkness that looms. Okay, so that's their introduction. I'm going to pause there for a second, just kind of collect myself, my thoughts. So, I like the fact that they have a specific narrative they want to tell. I actually like that. That's a positive for me, rather than just, we want to reboot the game in general. Okay? But the next section here is, what about the other factions? Certain factions people remember from Warhammer Fantasy Battles are not part of the narrative we're telling with the Old World, but will be provided with rules at the launch of the game. These legacy factions, I'm going to pause there. So they have factions that are launching in legacy mode, meaning they're not going to be supported in the future. That's the consistent verbiage they've used and demonstrated when it comes to legacy things, unless there is a new model for an older thing, in which case all bets are off. The factions here that are not included, or they're included rules-wise, but they're not going to be supported, to my understanding, are the Dark Elves, the Skaven, the Vampire Counts, Demons of Chaos, Ogre Kingdoms, Lizardmen, and Chaos Dwarves. So Chaos Dwarves will get rules day one, because didn't they just close all that stuff out on Forge World, or was that a while ago? So Chaos Dwarves will have army rules day one, but they're not going to be probably continued much in the story. What's interesting to me is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these factions listed have complete and well-supported model ranges existing already. Like they might as well exist because they already make the models. They're actively making them. That's an opinion. I'll back off there. Let's go back into the article here. After it lists off the factions, those legacy faction army lists will be made available for free as PDFs as a service to fans who've had these classic armies on their shelf, so they can still bring them to battle for old time's sake. We don't plan to publish rules for Warhammer Age of Sigmar miniatures, except for those units that were part of the game setting during the final edition of the Fantasy Battle series. So new stuff's not out, but we will get rules back for our basic Orc Boys, which I actually had a ton of those models. They're pretty cool. But yeah, they made it very clear. We don't plan to publish rules for anything that's newer. This is what it is. And it says, what are the other armies up to? Now, of course, they said they're focusing on one specific section here. During the century before the Siege of Prague, the Skaven Under Empire was riven with civil war to the extent that they retreated from the surface world. This is the origin of the belief that the Skaven aren't real. They vanished for several generations and became folklore. The Skaven re-emerged only after the Horned Rat himself was summoned at Skaven Blight to end the strife and now instill new purpose into his children. This ties in with the wider rise of chaos and destruction wrought by Asavar Kul, turning them into a new power in the world. So, Skaven are busy with the Civil War. The von Karsteins were all dead, for a given value of dead, after the Vampire Wars. With their defeat, other vampires went into hiding, so none of them. Dark Elves, Lizardmen, Chaos Dwarves, and Ogre Kingdoms are all based from far from the old world during this period. Yeah, they don't, not even, there's like, they don't care about any of this stuff. Not like Dark Elves would want slaves. Lizardmen can use geomantic power. Chaos Dwarves, slaves. Ogre Kingdoms, food. And then the last one here, Chaos Demons have existed in the past and will again, but there's an ebb and flow to the power of Chaos. In our period, Chaos is at its lowest ebb in a long time. When Asavar Kul rises to become the 12th ever chosen, the power of Chaos will build again, but we won't see demonic servants of individual gods for a while yet. Demons, and especially demon princes, exist, the latter given power by belief of the mortals who worship them as demigods, but a whole legion manifesting in the real world are incredibly rare. So, okay. Okay, so we have the factions that are going to be focused on, and the list of the ones that are not. I would like to tell a story, okay? When I started high school, I was getting to know a whole bunch of friends. I had moved during the summer between 8th grade and 9th grade here in the States. That's middle school to high school. So I'm starting off in a new place, San Antonio, Texas. Didn't know anybody. But I'm trying to make friends, and one of these friends invites me to go to like a summer camp, hang out with them. They said, hey, you might love it actually, because there's going to be a band there that we like adore, and we think you're going to like it. And whether or not I would like the band was irrelevant. These people who I was getting to know as friends wanted me to be excited about something that they were excited about, and I was excited for them to get what they want. So we go to the summer camp. The band, I won't mention the name, but it's a 9-member band. It's a big old one, okay? 9 members. A ton of people came to see these guys. 2 members show up, and it's like the drummer and like a backup vocalist. So like, nothing wrong with them. They are equal members of the band, but they're not like the 2 that you think of when you think about going to see the band, right? You think of all 9 members, rock and jam and have a great time. And my friends were really disappointed. Like, they were so excited for that moment. And me, in turn, with nary a dog in the fight, I don't know this band. I didn't even listen to any of the music when there was all 9 of them. Never mind, like, they sent the equivalent of Ringo's stunt double from the Beatles up there to play for all these kids. It made me mad on behalf of my friends. Like, I don't know anything about this band, but I already don't like them because they sold a false bill of goods. My friends got excited, and I have to see them disappointed. That's a bummer. That's a huge bummer. I never forgot that moment. The power of promises and hype, and then what happens when you don't deliver, but you act like everything's fine. Like, the band went up there and they were like, yeah, we're cool, we're with the band. It's like, you are the 2 weakest members of a 9-man link. I don't know what to tell you. We're not excited to see you. I'm sorry. Love you. Give you a hug, whatever. And I think about that lesson in life, where it was a lesson in empathy for me, right? My comments have been bombarded with people eagerly excited for the old world because they loved the setting. They loved the streets of the cities of Ban, the forests from where the lizard man hail, like all of these things. It is a world that captured so many. So when Games Workshop then puts the promise out there of we're going back, and then half the dang factions aren't going to be there. I mean, when I say half the factions, I know that's a bit of a hyperbole because they did show a good number up here, and these are awesome. I'm really happy that they're here, and they all make perfect sense if they're focusing on this specific place. I think the Dark Elves should be there because they do slave raids. They have just as much reason to be there as the High Elves, but whatever. And I just get really bummed because I think about the people who left those comments and how many of them played any one of these other major armies that were completely supported. Many of them still having active model lines. Consider this, I don't care if the Skaven are having a civil war. Right now, there are Skaven miniatures that they sell that are just as old as the molds that they're taking out of retirement to make more old world models. It's just a bummer. I know they're going to have rules day one. I know that, but like, I also know how players feel about the idea of legacy rules, which is, generally speaking, dead on arrival. Like, you know what I mean? I understand. Like, I play with Legacy War Scrolls sometimes. Certainly, I'm going to keep playing with my Rogue Idol. I don't care. I think it's awesome. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. Scion of Chaos says they did use the word legacy. Oh yeah, okay. I was going to point it out. I misread your comment. I thought you said didn't. So that's my story. And that's my feelings. It's not a video that's like Games Workshop bad or anything like that. It's just, I'm really bummed for some of my friends. So, that's it. That's the news. Sorry about that. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'll hang out for a little bit here and chat more. As far as, let's see here. Max Ducks, does it at least make sense timeline-wise? Yeah, I mean, I think they gave some reasons for these. So, for example, they said the Skaven are having a civil war. Vampire count, many of their named characters are down, which apparently means the entire faction's dead. I don't quite buy that one. Demons, I feel like it's okay to be light on some of the chaos stuff, considering it's the main villain and everything else. And if they wanted this to be a different story, I would still have demons exist as like something summoned by Warriors of Chaos. But I don't know. Ogre Kingdoms, I don't see a reason. Well, someone tell me this. Where were the ogres located in the old world? Weren't they? I mean, I thought they were kind of spread out. Am I just wrong about that? The factions are there, but not in the focus. Yeah, and that's the thing where it's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Mordheim might come back. Honestly, if it was Mordheim set in... Well, I guess it couldn't be Mordheim set here, because Mordheim didn't blow up until a certain time. But, Mountains of Morn. I don't know. I don't know the old world nearly as much as I knew AOS. We're in the east. Okay. Well, but doesn't the mountain range go that far? I don't know. They could add them later. But you could say that about all these things, but I don't know. So I'm looking at all this stuff. Could it be those factions will get more focus on a future re-release of the game, say 2nd edition? Wishful thinking. I mean, you know, for most of these, they still produce the models. Like I said, if they wanted to include these ranges, I feel like most of the stuff from the Demons book and the Skaven book are old, just as old as some of the stuff they're bringing back. Lizardmen might be tough because they did cycle out some really important kits, like the cavalry and that kind of stuff with new options. They already said they're not making war scrolls for new AOS things. It's only stuff in the past. They want to bring back miniatures. Yeah, they can make up whatever they want in the future. But it's interesting to start the game before it's out by giving a few details like... Okay. So it's not just these specific factions. It's also the idea of like there's no launch box. The rules are going to be PDF available at first, so that's cool. I mean, that's a positive. But they've made no mention about like future support or what support even looks like, you know? Is it going to be like a single campaign book, kind of like how they support Aeronautica? You know, Aeronautica does get consistent releases. It's like once every 3 or 4 months, and it's like a thin booklet that's like, this time we're fighting in rough skies. You know what I mean? But like, it's a little bit more than that, but I don't know. It just seems like a disappointment. I got nothing else. People keep asking if I'm going to cover it here. You know, maybe they will make some banger stories. I don't know much about this time period in the old world. If they send it to me, I will absolutely read it. And if I find it intriguing, I'll absolutely talk about it. Regardless of the game. I don't see myself getting into the game. I would much rather play Hobgoblin or maybe even Kings of War. I don't know. I only demoed that one. But certainly like Conquest, something like that, rank and flank if that's my itch. We got a few comments here. I'm just going to hang out a little bit in the comments because this is kind of a loaded conversation because a lot of people were really excited, as was predicted. I'll throw this up here just to give us something fun to look at. All the old world stuff I was building is irrelevant. I get the lack of lizards, but old world without vampires or Skaven will suck. Yeah. Basically, the real question is how long do we have to wait for Cathay and Kislev? That's fair. Hell, that's those things what you want. That's great. Cool. From a marketing standpoint, it seems odd to start off this way, but I guess this was never really meant to be anything more than a line thrown the old guard. You know, but it didn't have to be. That's the thing. It did not have to be. Because you could also say that about the Horus Heresy, that those are, by and large, typically older male players, and they're kind of their own community because they play it like a historical game, which not really anything else in in Games Workshop is held to that same standard. But, you know, they still influxed it with some new life and new blood. There's great campaign support and really cool models and a lot of discussion around building things. This just, it doesn't have that. And I'm like, why do it then? I mean, I get it. I know why to do it. To do it to solidify their place as owning the IP, and that there is an analog version of Total War. I think that's important to have, but I don't know. There were some designs for Kislev released in the past, or revealed in the past. I wonder if those units would be part of the Empire of Man. I don't know. I do not know. That's very interesting. This story could be great, but I guess it comes with some Black Library books. I would be into that. Actually, my favorite Warhammer book that I've ever read was actually End Times Thankful, because the section on the bell tolls for Nuln was the coolest thing that I had read at that point. Because at this point, like I had a rough idea of the game, but I hadn't read a campaign book to put what I was playing into, like, storytelling kind of things. I had played War Machine and Hordes before, and they don't really do narrative missions. And so when I found that, I was like, this is the single greatest thing ever. So all I want to do is have a Nuln army, but they can't be attacked by Skaven. Ayo! Nothing's blocking them from expanding later. It's true. It is absolutely true. But I would add that if you poison the well early, people don't come back for a drink later, even if logically it'll be cleared up. Feels like GW is struggling with side games to launch and support. Heresy has been over a year, and they're not even close to having all the basics out before getting Legion specific stuff. I would imagine that has something to do with production as well. But I will say that I have liked the consistency of Horus Heresy support. Like if I was a fan of Old World before this article, I would expect the same level of thing, because that's kind of how they've always talked about it. But I don't know. I guess Heresy has moved from a specialist game to a core one, hasn't it now? It's on their main page, just like Lord of the Rings and 40k and AOS. I don't know. But anyway, friends, I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and hop off. My wife will need the internet here in a little bit. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Shout out to the Eagle Chariots, because those were always their coolest models. I actually started the game because of a spread that looked exactly like this. I got into it specifically with High Elves because I saw the Island of Blood box, and I was like, I need this. I don't know. Old World is dead on arrival. I don't know if I would say the whole game is. I definitely want to see the campaign book, and I want to read the story that they have to tell, but I don't know. No vampire counts, no good for me. Like all my friends playing Total War 3. Mogwai, man, I do understand, and I also feel that the pull of saying, well, they have rules. The thing is, though, with Games Workshop is that will be awesome at launch, and I'm sure everyone who has those models will have a great time. How long is it before supplements and design push the armies they're focusing on, like, astronomically further, stronger, or whatever, than the free PDFs? It's the same thing happens with AOS, right? Like when everything dropped, it was all fine. Index Hammer for 40k. I don't know. It's 20-year-old kits and a few resin heroes. D Scorpion. I think that's my attitude as well. The Old World isn't dead on arrival necessarily, but it's definitely going to take a lot for them to build it up. So anyway, friends, I'm going to go ahead and hop off. Leave your comments down below. I will catch you in my next news video. Let me know your thoughts on the Old World. Are you happy? Are you excited? What are you going to do with your army day one? Who are you planning to play against? Let me know down below, and I will catch you next time. Happy wargaming.